So once again, welcome to this Roland Academy educational series. This is a partner webinar with ErgoSoft, and it is actually part two of a series that we are doing. Our first series was a few months ago at the beginning of the year, and that was Intro to ErgoSoft Roland Edition, and it showed you what to do to get started and all that good stuff. So now this is part two. We're really getting into the meats and bones of it. So it is spot color matching with ErgoSoft Roland Edition. My name is Lily Hunter. I am the product manager here at Roland for Dye Sub Products. And with me, I have John Reed, ErgoSoft Technical Sales Executive. So John will be handling the majority of this presentation and show us lots of great stuff. But first, let me just go over quickly the agenda. We're pretty much going to learn the importance of spot colors and spot color replacement. And from there, we are going to overview the different color tools that's available in ErgoSoft Roland Edition. So there are going to be some new terminologies that will be very helpful. You'll learn about swatch books, measuring colors, named colors, and how to print similar colors. And with that, let me switch it over to John.
All right. Can you hear me, Lily?
I sure can.
Okay, perfect. Great. Let me go ahead and get this up. All right, so yeah, like Lily said, we're going to start off going through a PowerPoint presentation just so we understand what the goal is, what we're trying to achieve when we use spot colors, and then we'll actually go into the RIP and show you step by step how to do various things to get color matching, the most accurate color match possible using all the various tools in the software. So like Lily mentioned, the ErgoSoft Roland Edition software has 4 key tools that we're going to be focusing on today. Swatch Books, Measure Colors, Named Colors, and Print Similar Colors. Swatch Books are a library of colors. It's a location where you can generate a library of colors. You can import colors that you've made elsewhere. You can make color blends. You can measure colors into it. And the cool thing about Swatch Books is it is device independent, meaning that the color values associated with these swatches are not tied to a specific printer profile. So you can measure a color and you get spectral data from that measured color. Or you can add a color and you'll add the wanted LAB value. So it's device independent. Now named colors, on the other hand, that is where we use, that's the tool for spot color replacement. And that is device dependent. So there's a difference between swatch books and named colors. So the goal at the end of this is to make sure you know the differences and how they interact with one another and when to use each tool. So spot colors, their digital print production uses a traditional color managed workflow for photographs, but it's very common that spot color matching is used when you're working with graphics or soft signage, and especially in apparel. And some of these slides are screenshots of Adobe Illustrator. It's one of the most commonly used design applications, and it just talks about ways that you can use industry standard color books like Pantone colors. You can create your own custom colors and then colorize design with them. You can also take the swatch books that you've made in the ErgoSoft Roland Edition software and then bring those into Illustrator for designing purposes. So you can always come back and watch this again if you want to take a screenshot of each one of these slides once this is posted, or you can take a screenshot now. But I'm not going to go through the ins and the outs of this, but it is relatively simple if you know just a little bit of Illustrator to be dangerous. So briefly, to design with the pre-installed industry standard color books, you would just need to open the swatches dialog, click the icon at the top right, and then choose Open Swatch Library, and then you'll choose Color Books, and then you'll see all of the industry standard color books that are supplied. So it's very common that people are going to be using Pantone Plus solid coated. They go for the solid coated even though a lot of devices aren't able to hit some of those values, but they really strive to achieve that. So that seems to be what majority of people are using. Now the other thing, especially in apparel, is people are using their own custom spot colors. So you might see if you work with another company that you're learning from, and they're doing jobs today, they typically have their own custom spot color library where they're making up a spot color name and then associating a wanted LAB value with that, and then they're designing with it. So the method that they're using is opening that swatch dialog and then creating a new swatch. So the key to this is when you choose new swatch, you have to enter a swatch name, and then the capitalization, punctuation, spacing, everything is extremely important, and the color type has to be set to spot color, and then we can use that for spot color replacement. And it's very important that you enter in an accurate LAB value. The LAB value is the desired appearance of that color across any device because it's device independent. And last, you can also go to the swatches dialog, click the icon at the top right, choose Open Swatch Library, and then down at the very bottom you'll see Other Library, and then you'll be in an Explorer window, and you'll be able to open up one of the swatch books that we've made in the ErgoSoft Roland Edition software. So, spot colors, they're termed named colors, and they're different than traditional process colors. So process colors would be cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and if you're running the RT 640 in 8 color, you'd also have another process color of orange and another one that's violet. But the spot colors are named colors. So the name of the color is what is important. And when you have spot color replacement enabled in a RIP software, the RIP can see that name and then allow you to specify exactly how that color should be printed, what the ink recipe should be used while printing that. So this is perfect because you can change percentages of ink values of every channel and get a precise color match. So, if you look at shoes, for instance, they're made up of a bunch of different fabrics. And one fabric might need a little bit more magenta than another fabric, but the colors need to match. So spot color replacement is the tool that everybody uses to get those colors to match across multiple devices, across multiple substrates. So the way we do this is using the named colors feature that is in the ErgoSoft Roland Edition software. Now this kind of breaks down the concept. So spot color, if you're to design a file in Illustrator and save it out as PDF or PostScript, you could actually open that in a note in Notepad or a Word editor, so that if you look on the left, if you were to design with process colors, it would say swatch name equals cyan, magenta, yellow, black with a specific recipe, and the color mode is CMYK, and the type is a process color. And then further down, if you were to design with a spot color, instead of a swatch name equaling process, or swatch type equaling process, it would equal spot. So the RIP software sees the tag that the swatch is a spot color, and then it knows to look at the swatch name, and it knows to look at the color mode of LAB. So then it's going to be looking at that LAB value. So if your RIP software, which is the screenshot on the right, this is a screenshot of named colors. So if you have Pantone 485C in your replacement library, the RIP is going to see that, okay, this is Pantone 485C. Now I'm going to look at the LAB value, the wanted appearance, and then I'm going to convert that directly to the printer profile. And then we can adjust the device values from there as needed. So basically that's how the process is working. So one thing that's key to understand, a traditional color managed workflow has multiple color conversions throughout the color management system. When you're doing spot color conversion, you're converting directly from LAB to your printer's color space. It's just one single color conversion. So that will yield a much more accurate color match. You're basically only using one of the lookup tables in a profile, and you definitely get much more vibrant and accurate color. And the named colors feature in the ErgoSoft Roland edition also allows us to bypass color management altogether and choose the printer's device values directly. So we could go in there and type in a specific ink recipe. So it is very, very powerful. Now to just give you a visual on the traditional color managed workflow, things like photographs, or if you're not using spot color replacement and you were to design with spot color, let's say you're designing a graphic with a Pantone color, but the RIP software isn't set up for spot color replacement. Well, what ends up happening is that that spot color gets treated as a process color. So it goes through this traditional color managed workflow. So if you look on the right for CMYK input, or for CMYK files, you've got a CMYK input profile, which is a device-dependent color space. So a lot of people would be using US web-coded swap. Some would be using Grackle 2006. And then it gets converted to a device-independent connection space. So LAB is usually what we're going to be using. And then from LAB, it gets converted to the printer's profile. So in this process, when it converts to LAB, one thing that a lot of people come to find out is that, you design a file and it is supposed to be 75% yellow and nothing else, no other channels. But when it prints out, you can see some cyan dots or some black dots or magenta dots in there. Well, the reason being is because that input profile, you said use 75% yellow, well, that equals a specific LAB value for that input profile. So then the printer profile has a lookup table that says, okay, I can reproduce that LAB value, but I need to use some other colors in addition to yellow. So I have to use 85% yellow and 10% cyan and 2% magenta to match that LAB value. That's where we're getting those dots showing up where we don't want them. So this is really a key item to understand. This is one of the other key advantages, because a spot color replacement color conversion, it's just doing a direct conversion from the wanted LAB value to your device profile. You're just doing a single color conversion. So you get to maximize the color gamut of your device. So I'll break this down for you. The red line is a 2D gamut plot of a typical input profile of US web-coded swap. And the colored gamut, the one that's rather large, that's the TexArt RT640 A color. And you can see that the printer profile, the gamut is significantly larger than the working space, that input profile. And then all these floating dots are Pantone solid coded. So if you're not using spot color replacement, those Pantone solid coded values, they have to get converted as process colors to your input profile. So they get smushed down to this input profile, which happens to be US web-coded swap. And then once they're inside of there, they can't convert and gamut map back out to the printer profile. So it's basically leaving all of those colors that we could be reproducing, all these beautiful deep dark violets and blues and oranges and reds. All of those are just muted down to the input profile. So if we really want to get best color match possible and the most vibrant color possible, we need to do a direct conversion from LAB to the device color space. And the way we do that is with the named colors feature, doing spot color replacement. So now we can go ahead and proceed with the demonstration. So the first thing we'll do is create a named color profile for spot color replacement. And then we'll also review how to adjust the device values. You can do this manually or using a feature that we've employed many, many years ago that is still one of the best things about the software. It's called print similar colors. So rather than guessing and checking on should I add 10% yellow or should I add 5% black, this thing will automatically generate a grid, a myriad of different ink recipes based around a starting point, and you can print it out and then look at it or measure it and determine which is the best ink recipe to use for a match. And then last, we'll use the Swatch Books feature. And in Swatch Books, we'll use a tool called Measure Colors, and we can measure existing set of colors and then reproduce those using named colors and spot color replacement on the new Roland printer. So now I'll switch over to the ErgoSoft Roland edition.
Just a reminder, anytime you guys have any questions, feel free to type it in the questions box and we can definitely get to them.
Okay, so now going through the demo, creating a named color profile for spot color replacement. The first thing we need to do is make sure that we have our color management settings set up to allow this. So let's go ahead and go to Tools and Options, and now we're in the Application Default Settings. So if we come down to PostScript and PDF, Color Management, we can see up top, Use Named Color Profile for Spot Color Replacement. That is enabled. And down here, if this is not expanded, make sure this is expanded, and use Named Color Profile for device end color spaces. And a device in color space is a spot color to spot color blend, so a gradient of two spot colors. So if you want to do spot color replacement on that, make sure this is enabled. So your screen should look like this. And then we also might as well connect our spectrophotometer. So I'll select mine from the list, and I'll hit, so if you have an i1 Pro or a Barbieri Spectral LFP or a SpectraPad, you just select it, hit detect, and if you found it, you'll be able to go under options. And for dye sub, I highly recommend the M1 measurement condition. So now color management settings are set up. Now I want you to understand where the named color profile is going to be stored. So that is going to be stored in the print settings of a specific print environment. So here's the print environment that we're going to be using. And if you look under extras, it will say named colors profile. And it should say embedded if you have one in there. If it says none, then you don't have a spot color replacement library. So this is specific for this print environment. So now on to the show. So in order to do this, we'll go to Tools, Color and Special Features, and now we will launch Named Colors. So it is now empty. There are no named colors in here. So the first thing I'm going to show you is just how to import in one of the industry standard color books. So this function right here is the import button. But before we import anything in, we need to choose a rendering intent for the conversion from the LAB target value. So I'd recommend either relative color metric or absolute color metric. Default is going to be relative, so we'll stick with that. I'll click Import, and then we have to navigate to where the industry standard color books are located. So if you have the Adobe suite, Adobe Illustrator, for instance, you have all of the color books. So you could basically just do a search, either a Windows search or a Mac Spotlight search for .acb, as in Adobe Color Book. And then you should be able to see the whole directory, and we're going to want to grab Pantone Solid Coded. So now I just say open, and there's nothing there, so it doesn't matter what I choose right now. And what it has done is it is converted directly from LAB to my device color space using relative color metric. Now if I want to add to this library, I can choose import again, and then I can bring in the Pantone Solid Coded 336 supplement that was released. And I'll click open, and this time I want to click no. I don't want to delete the color list. I want to add to it. So now it's in there. So now we've converted directly from lab to the device space. What we want to do is print this chart out and see how accurate our reproduction is. So if you look under print options, you can choose how big of a color field you want to print the chart. Usually, half an inch by half an inch is enough, but the width needs to be wide enough so that the information, the title, and then the device values fit, so they don't get truncated. So you might have to play around with your font size to make it smaller, or your color field to make it bigger. And then we just click Create Job. Now that will take a little bit because it is a large amount of colors. And I can click OK to get out of here. And now while it's generating the preview, I'll zoom on in. So basically you would print this, do your transfer, and look at the final product. You can measure these values and quantify their accuracy. or you could compare those to what your target is. And at the top, you'll see the name of the swatch. Underneath, you'll see the device values that were used to print that.
Real quick question for you, John. A lot of people who are using VersaWorks, they're used to the VersaWorks color system library, and can you use that with ErgoSoft?
Absolutely, yes. So that is definitely doable. The color system library, the files are they're an AI file, so they'd had to be converted over to Adobe Swatch Exchange. And if you wanted to bring those in, we would use the import function. And here, if I use the ASE file, Adobe Swatch Exchange, it's going to use the original CMYK process colors that were associated with those swatches in VersaWorks. So you can see here, it's not using orange or violet ink. It will just use CMYK values. Now, if you want to actually reproduce those based off of the wanted LAB value, you need to import in an Adobe Color Book version, a .acb file. So here I've got one that's converted to .acb. Now when I bring that in, now it converted from lab to my device space, and now I can see it's using the orange ink to reproduce that value.
Real quick, John, one of the questions that came in is...
Now, one thing that we can do, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now, question came in. How do you make the .ai swatch file into .asc and eventually ACB? Is that something you'll be covering in a little bit?
It's a little difficult to explain. I think if we could, if you could distribute them,
Okay.
as needed,
Definitely.
that would be good. And I could write up instructions, but it will be a little difficult to explain because it was a little of a...
So that's another webinar on its own. All right, yeah. So we'll make these available. So for people who are used to using the VersaWorks swatch library, we will have something available that they can use for ErgoSoft as well.
So now let's just pretend here that in a perfect world, when we printed out this chart, the Pantone chart, everything would come out right. But we don't live in a perfect world. So sometimes we need to change some of these colors. A color in particular, let's say 485 coded. So I'll search for 485. This is always really hard to hit. So if this color is off, this is where we can use the print similar colors functionality. So this is the starting ink recipe that it's using. And you could guess and check and just say, hey, add some more orange, add some more yellow, max out the magenta, drop the black, or you could use the print similar colors tool. So let's use that. And you can choose up to 4 channels to vary. So if I want to make this more red, I want to see what will happen when I use a little more yellow and a little more of the orange ink, because we've already maxed out on magenta. And then these terms here, number of colors is the range of colors we're going to, how big of an array we're going to use. And then the color steps is the ink percentage difference from the starting point for each one of these colors. And that's customized right under settings. So color steps of fine equals 2% increments, 5%, and medium, or medium is 5, and wide is 10. And then number of colors in both directions. So few will just do 2, medium will do 4, many does 6. And you can type in whatever values you want. Once you have that set, let's do this and just say create job. And it'll automatically create the job for me. And then let's say, hey, I just want to see one that is just the orange ink. And I want to see medium stepping on that. And I can click Add to Job. So it'll add to that existing job since I'm working on that color. I can keep going, or I can close out. Now, if I also wanted to work on 484 at the same time, I could go to that. And this time I want to see what happens when I change black. And I'll say create job, because we can't add it to the existing job, because this is a different color. So I can close out of this and OK out of here. So here is that one job. I'm actually got these scaling to maximum size, so let me put it back at original size. All right, so let's say I wanted to nest the whole job together and save some paper. I can right-click on this tab, split it into a new group, and then I can grab this file and drag it over to here, and I can drag this file, bring it over to there. Then we can also take 484 and bring that over here. And now once we're satisfied, we would go ahead and print this out, and we would transfer it. And then we would look at each color. And whatever color is the best match, we take that device value, and then we go back into named colors, and we'll look for 485. And then in here, we can type in the new value that we always want to use. So now, whenever the RIP sees 485C, it's going to output this specific ink recipe. Now, obviously, there's other buttons that are in here. You can add colors from a color picker. So you can just manually add something. You can import from the Swatch library, import from a spectrophotometer. You can edit an existing color and delete an existing color out. You can also export this list. So we can save this out in different formats.
All right, I have a question for you now, and we hear this a lot, especially with Roland customers who have, printing with other machines like the RE or RS or something like that, and they now have the new RT. What would be the best way to match colors that they were getting from another Roland printer? Is there a way to be able to match it regardless of what printer you have?
Yeah, actually the tools that are in here are definitely geared for that purpose. It's a very, very common thing that we run into. And a lot of times, people can be printing and, they're printing colors and they're happy with the color, their customers are happy with the color, but they're not accurately reproducing the color as it was described. So the LAB value that was describing, this color, they might not be reproducing that, but they're happy with the output, and they want to match that on a new machine or a new material. So actually I've got an example, a real-world example of, here is someone's custom swatch library that they had made. And the designer just chose lab values from the color picker. And this is their production. They stick to this. They're reproducing these lab values consistently, and they're happy with the output. But when you try to match that on another RIP or another printer or another material, it's very difficult, because if you tell a color management system that, hey, this is my target LAB value, but in reality, they've been printing this. This is a measured color of their output, and that's a delta E of 19. You'd just chase your tail. You'd be using print similar colors over and over and over again until you matched their color. So the best thing to do is make sure that the lab values associated with their colors are accurate, and the only way to do that is to measure them. So if we go ahead and use Swatch Books, we can achieve this quite easily. So if we go under Tools, Color and Special Features, and then Swatch Books, what I can do now is I can import in one of the Adobe ACB, the Illustrator ACB color books. So I've got one here that is ErgoSoft colors. So here's all the ErgoSoft colors, and then you can see the LAB value that is associated with it. And let's say I'm printing these today and I'm happy with the color reproduction. But let's go ahead and measure this color here, or measure this one, and see if we're getting this LAB value. If we're not, then we're going to change it. So right over here, we can say add measured color, and then we'd be adding one from scratch, or you can edit the color. We can change this color, and we're going to change it with measurement. So now it launches the Measure Colors dialog. So from here, I can say Measure Sample, and I'm using a Barbieri SpectroPad, so when I click Measure Sample here, it sends it to the SpectroPad. The SpectroPad receives the job, and then I have to click Measure from the SpectroPad. And then once I do that, now it shows me the spectral curve and the LAB value. So you can see here I'm getting L74.2, negative 3.2, and 64.9. So that is way different than this. So if I close this out and say OK here, now it updates that color. So this theme color is now the accurate target LAB value. So I just run through my list of all of the colors that I have, edit this one with measured color, measure sample, and if you're using an I1, when you click measure sample, it measures it immediately. All right, and if you notice, it throws this symbol, a little rainbow, that's telling you that it's got spectral measurement data. So I would just run through my whole list of existing colors that I've been reproducing on another device, and now they're device-independent LAB values. Now I can export this out, and let's export it out as, where are we here? Corrected measurement values. So now if I save this out as in another Adobe Color Book, you can bring that right into Illustrator and keep designing in Illustrator with the exact same name, spot color name, but the real LAB values are in there now. So let's save that out.
So John, real quick, and just want to reiterate or have you reiterate something or just go into more details. Now, when you measure these colors, so it is under the assumption that the colors have already been pressed and transferred onto whatever substrate. Is that correct? Or are you measuring the printed colors right off, just on the transfer paper?
No, if we want to mimic, basically we want to mimic production as much as possible. So if you're trying to reproduce color swatches that have been printed on another printer, you could possibly have a retain of all your swatch library that's already printed and transferred, and that's common that that'll be pinned to a wall, and we could just measure that. But if they don't have that, then we're going to have to print the library. So we would print that library and then transfer that after waiting a good 15 to 30 minutes to allow that paper to dry after it's been printed on. Then we'd transfer it, and then after it's transferred, we could go ahead and start doing the measurements. That way, we're trying to mimic production as much as possible, because if you transfer right after printing and the ink hasn't dried, you will get different. You will get a different transfer. You will get different output. So always think about, hey, in production, I'm doing roll-to-roll production. It takes 3 hours to print a whole roll. You should wait 3 hours, but really 15 to 30 minutes is sufficient. That should be enough. And then after you've printed those colors and you've measured them using the Swatch Books library, now I can choose any print environment. Since the Swatch Books are device-independent colors, I can choose any of my print environments from my list, and I can go to named colors for that print environment. And now I can import in the corrected measurement values of that existing production. So I'll open that. I'm going to add it to this list. So now I've got the real measured values, what we're currently producing, and then converted directly from that LAB value to our device color space. And that usually does yield a pretty good match. But again, if it doesn't, we always have print similar colors to choose a different array to print those out, and then choose a new CMYK orange-violet replacement color. So I'm just going to do two more quick things, just a couple of highlights in Swatch Books for you. So I come into Swatch Books. You will also notice that you can do blends. So you can start with an existing library. You can import in an existing swatch library. But let's say I wanted to do some blends of that color with white. You just do that and drag it in. Double click, either way. You can do blends with black. And if I choose another color, so if I choose this green and then this blue, now I can see blends between the green and the blue, and then I can add that color. So Swatch Books has a lot of different features in there for creating, own custom colors. And there's also this other feature here where you can generate. I can generate a very bright, vibrant library that is in the LCH color space, lightness, chroma, and hue. So there's 359 hues. I'm just going to do 10-degree separations and 10 values of chroma and 4 values of lightness. Chroma and lightness are going to go up to 100 each. And I like to keep track of what the range was. Then you click Generate, and it'll make a color list for you. So it goes through the whole human visual system. And I could have chose more lightness values here, but it will go through all of the lightness, chroma, and different hues. And if you print the chart, create a job directly from Swatch Books, it's very important to understand that when it does that, it does not print a CMYK value, a device value, underneath the swatch. It prints the LAB value because Swatch Books is still device independent. If you wanted to look at this LCH color space and see what the device values are, you have to bring it in to named colors. And then you'd be able to print it out from here, and then from named colors, you'd see the CMYK value, and it would be using it for spot color replacement. Last thing in the Swatch Books, if we've finished this, after we've measured all of our colors and got correct spectral values, or I did some blends, we can again export out, and there's multiple formats. So if you wanted to work with Photoshop, you'd choose ACO. This is a universal format. This is unique to us, and then there's CGAT's text files as well. So you can work with other software like ColorThink and things like that. And basically all you have to do is export this out as an Adobe Color Book file, and then take that color book and bring it right into Illustrator and design the files with it.
That is a lot of great information.
Yeah, there's always more, but you know, I don't want to go too far over. But is there any questions that you have on that, Lily?
No, not at all. Once again, if any of you have questions, feel free to type it in the questions box. But right now, it seems people are digesting the information. Plus, you can always review this since we are recording this. And as questions come up, you can definitely contact us. And we can definitely walk you through this a little bit more or answer more specific questions. Do you have anything else to share?
There is one other cool trick that we can do. If we go back to Tools, Color and Special Features, you can use Measure Colors as a standalone entity. So it's not going to just throw it into Swatch Books or into Named Colors. So I can do Measure Colors just on its own. So this, for instance, I can put it in an advanced mode. And one thing that's really cool is if I have Excel, I can send that data directly to Excel after it's been measured. so I can keep track. I don't have to hand write this stuff down. So that's going to put in the Excel file. So basically, I can take my spectro and say measure sample, take a measurement, it puts it over in Excel because I've selected send the LAB value over there. The other thing you can do is measure your reference color. So let's select reference color. So that would be, let's say I had a job that was printed on the RE640. So I can measure that. And now I can choose to measure the sample color. And now it'll calculate delta E. So if I say measure sample, let's measure one that's way off. So it'll automatically calculate delta E between my reference color and then the sample that I reproduced on a different printer or a different fabric. And you know, obviously we want the delta E as low as possible. But yeah, I think that's enough information to get everyone you know, excited to play around with some new tools.
Great, great. And you know, like I said, if you have any further questions as you play around and have questions, then please feel free to contact us, and we will definitely walk you through. So I thank you. We thank you for spending your time morning with us, or afternoon, depending on where you're at. And once again, everything is being recorded, and it will be in the archive, so you can go back and view it again. And if you have coworkers that have missed this and want to actually check it out, review it, get better at spot color replacement with ErgoSoft Roland Edition, it is something that can be viewed over and over again. And with that, we thank you for your time and have a great day.